great to see you again. Thanks for spending some time with us today.
Oh, my delight, Rick. Thank you.
Yeah. So what I was hoping to do was ask some questions relative to some of your great works, like the E-Myth Revisited, over 3 million copies sold, and tie that in with the people element. And some of that you touch on in Beyond the E-Myth. So kind of I had a ton of burning questions around taking those entrepreneurial dreams and visions and how maybe we translate that to great employees, like A players and maybe why great, motivated, aligned, inspired people are so important to organizations.
Super.
Great.
Ask away.
Ask away. So I love the quote in your new book, Beyond the E-Myth, every life a legacy, every business a school. For growing companies that are scaling up, how can they better support their employees in creating their own legacies as employees inside of the company?
Well, you know, and I know that employees are attracted to opportunity. And the opportunity isn't just the opportunity to make more money than they're making presently, though that is there.
Mm-hmm.
But the opportunity to participate in something beyond the ordinary. So when Steve Jobs did Apple, the small group of people in that garage got to participate in something beyond the ordinary.
Mm-hmm.
Steve Jobs' vision, the picture he created that was played so theatrically well at the Super Bowl in Apple's first commercial there. And everybody's familiar with that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So understand from the standpoint of a person working at Apple, to know that Apple is the David to IBM's Goliath gives them a sense of calling, a sense of purpose, a sense of mission, a sense of value and excitement.
Right.
They get to do that. That's what they're there to do. You can't beat that. It's got to be there. And it's not there in 99.9% of all companies on the planet.
Let's say you're a Ohio manufacturing. So I'm based in Ohio, right? This is a great business. It's been in existence. The employees love the business, but let's just say they make those little red toilet flaps or something, or something that's not Apple, that's not world famous. How would you provide that same kind of inspiration and core purpose, even if you're not, doing brain surgery? How do we instill that purpose if it's more of a simple good or service?
Well, you've got to communicate what the value of that business is to the marketplace it serves. In short, it's not selling to companies, it's selling to people.
Mm-hmm.
And those people are buying that product because they trust it and value it beyond the ordinary. So the company has to communicate its purpose, its mission, its dream, what all this languaging that I do about this, in exactly the same way as Steve Jobs did. And unfortunately, we're so tied down to the practical realities of what we do every day and the obstacles in the way of what we do every day that we miss the true human value of what we do every day. That's got to be communicated. And the only way to communicate that makes a difference is that the story of the company be alive and vibrantly well at the heart of the company every single day. I say that the entrepreneur must inspire his or her people. And that means to create an epiphany. That's a moment of awakening beyond the ordinary, beyond the normal things that go on in everybody's life, beyond making a living. They've got to be inspired. The second thing that has to happen, they have to be educated. So effectively, they need to be taught the meaning of that epiphany and better understand it. So I call it an epiphany and a moment of seeing, and then a moment of understanding what I've just seen, and relating that to the marketplace that we're here to serve. So every employee gets to participate in that grand venture, in that grand adventure. And when they get to participate in that, they go beyond just the ordinary stuff that they deal with every single day of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
That's the critical component of all this. Every single one of us lead ordinary lives. All the stuff that goes on in our lives, all the stuff that we become excited about or challenged by or diminished by or eradicated by, all of those things, what I'm saying is we have to be inspired to go beyond them.
Mm-hmm.
So that becomes the call of the entrepreneur. That becomes the call of the executives in a major corporation. That becomes the call in the owner of a very small business. So it's no difference, big or small. It's got to be there. And if it ain't there, it's just a job. And just a job is backbreaking.
Right. No, couldn't agree more. What tools does that owner, entrepreneur, divisional leader, middle manager, senior leader have to bring that awakening alive?
Well, I'd like to take it apart from the word tools, because there's so much in this information age, this age of technology, so many tools, so many social media tools, so many operational tools, so many dashboards, and so forth and so on. I want to take it beyond that because it ain't that does it.
Right.
The
I was
tool,
going more the interpersonal tools.
the interpersonal tools are simply every opportunity you have to organize your communication with your people about where you are and what you're doing and why you're doing it and where you're going are critical.
Mm-hmm.
So I say that inspiration, education, training, coaching, mentoring, and guiding your people have to be a real-time job. These are things you do every single day, and you decide how you're going to do them and what they're going to be, not simply as tools to manipulate your people. That would be the absolute worst thing anybody could do. But in fact, truly, how you communicate what you feel in what you do and why it's important to you. Absolutely critical.
Going for that greater why, right?
Absolutely. But every single time, you must relate that to your core dream, vision, purpose, and mission. You must relate it to the core confluence of those four very critical words in the communication with your people about why you're there and why you get up every day to do the work you do.
Perfect. Love it. Could you elaborate more on business being a school? And by the way, I could not agree more. And given the state of higher education, both high schools and universities, what purpose does business have in terms of being a school, and what's in the school? What kind of components are in the business being a school?
Well, first of all, you have to understand that the high schools and the, in quotes, higher education today all suck.
Mm-hmm.
So effectively, they're an operating absolute disaster. And so any kid who comes out of any school, you can be absolutely assured, has not truly been inspired to learn and to grow.
Right.
Not. So that's not happening on the street. The only place it can happen then is where we work. And so the owner, the operator, the executive, the chief executive officer, the C group, the whomever and whatever, must know that it's their prime responsibility to grow their people. And that means to grow them in a very specific way. So it's not just stuff that you're throwing at people. It's truly a well thought out strategy for how to grow people from where they begin to where they themselves wish to go.
Mm-hmm.
So in that context, it's not enough for the company to have a dream. The company's inspiration must be for every single human being within that company to have a personal dream.
Mm-hmm.
Because until and unless every single person is connected with themselves, that there's no possibility for a true connection with the company.
Right.
So we're all interested in ourselves. And any company that forgets that every one of our people are solely interested in themselves and how they're going to move through the whatever next stages of their life, that the company becomes a medium through which that exchange can occur, that path can be pursued, and those outcomes can be achieved. So everything we must do then to awaken the inventive spirit within our people, the responsive spirit within our people, everything we must do to do that, we must plan to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts with the story of the company.
Right.
So every company must write their story. And within that story is what I mentioned at the very outset of this call, the story of Apple and that very first commercial that they ran in the Super Bowl. And that commercial which positioned Apple as the David to IBM's Goliath,
Mm-hmm.
and the calling it had that drove its development to transform the state of life for every single one of the ordinary people who began to use Apple products. Remember, there was no personal computer really then.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
None. It's hard to even imagine. It's hard to even think. There was a time when there wasn't a personal computer. There was no personal computer then. Apple, Steve Jobs saw the power of that for every individual. The ability for every individual to seek out the world in ways that had never been possible for them before, with intelligence that had never been available to them before, with a mechanism that had never been provided to them before. Major, major, major thing. So,
And how? Go
how
ahead.
do you do that with an ordinary commodity, like a tire?
Mm-hmm. That little rubber stopper I was talking about.
Right, right. How do you do that? You use your imagination to do that. You go back to the source, and the source of the what is called at Disney the Imagineer. You go back and you create it. You go back and you define it. You go back and you design it. It's beyond the world of tires.
Right.
There's something absolutely critical to be told there.
And I think
so
fair to say that ties into your great result, right? The great result.
the great result. That's what the dream is, the
Yeah.
great result.
So a great result for humanity, whether it's that tire or that little red stopper, that things are substantially better because this innovation exists.
The world runs on our tires.
Mm-hmm.
The world runs on our tires. We made a commitment to create the most spectacular tire the planet would ever see and to continually improve it beyond anyone else in the world. And our tires run the world. Think about that.
Mm-hmm.
The world runs on our tires. Get a flat, you ain't going anyplace. But you're not going to get a flat with that because that's our tire.
Awesome. In the E-Myth Revisited, you talk about how seriously the leader took the operation of the business and how the business is an expression of what that leader believed in, and how that leader took the communication with each of his new employees so seriously. How would you grade the average manager in a company in terms of coaching and onboarding employees relative to what you wrote in 1977?
Well, as I say, it's a process. It begins with the fact that the first day an employee starts with you, she is what we're calling a blank piece of paper and beginner's mind.
Mm-hmm.
I'm taking everything that they've done before they came here and discounting it completely. I'm not taking what they've done before as their great value. I'm taking the fact that they're here at all is their great value, because they've had to prove themselves by a certain set of measures that we've applied in the process to define who they are and where they're of value to us. Which means that at the very beginning, we're going to start them just like that, with a blank piece of paper and beginner's mind. Welcome to our company. Welcome to a completely new world.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to a world where what you've done isn't important. And in fact, what you're going to do isn't important. What's important is how you grow to do what you wish to do as a result of your time with us here.
Mm-hmm.
We know you're not going to be here for the rest of your life. Nobody is any place for the rest of their life. We know that.
Mm-hmm.
Our absolute conviction is that we're going to alter the course of your life by what you learn here with us in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And in that process, add immense value to our mission while adding immense value to yours. So you begin the conversation like that. And it begins with an introduction to how we engage here, our culture, you might call it,
Mm-hmm.
and what we do to influence expanding your operating intelligence, to expanding your connection with everyone here, to expand your relationship with our community, to expand your love of learning, because we're going to teach you stuff you've never learned before. Like that.
Right. How do you tell people are telling the truth? And, we do a lot of recruiting in our business here. And unfortunately, many people fib, right, to be polite. They don't tell the truth.
You mean lie?
Many people lie, exactly. Or, this sounds great, I want to do it, and 3 weeks later they're gone, right? So how do you do the truth serum? How do you make sure people are on the level as we're sharing our dreams, we're asking them about their dreams, and to get the best results and the most people who work out?
Well, it's very simple. You test them.
And what types of tests would you recommend?
Well, you test them against the measures you're using, the standards you're using, to determine their sincerity. And that means that the first 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks of their time with us are having them take actions that you're going to measure.
Okay.
So very simple, through actions, not through language, through actions. And so there's that whole paradigm of testing that goes on at the very beginning. Not overt testing, meaning not I'm testing you, I'm testing you, I'm testing you, not that. But simply actions you're expecting them to take and they need to take in order to validate their sincerity in what they say they're there to do and what they believe in.
Mm-hmm.
And so those tests, they're very, very simple. They're ordinary tests about ordinary things that need to be done. Have them, for example, somebody who's going to be one of your top salespeople serve as a janitor for 3 days.
Mm-hmm. As I just say, I see better than I hear, right? So show me. Yeah.
How does he respond to that? How does she respond to that?
Yeah.
Suddenly, and not just loosey-goosey, go do whatever, but some very specific tasks that need to be completed and that require some attention, that require some commitment, require some zeal. So it's very easy to determine whether or not they're lying to you.
Yeah, I love it. Absolutely love it. Uh, Transitioning just a little bit, you've long said work is a reflection of who we are. If the work's sloppy, we're sloppy on the inside. If we're late, then we're late on the inside. How is our work, a reflection of who we are inside?
Well, our work, yours and mine, obviously is a reflection of it. Just look at the negative um, words that we use: late, non-productive, lazy, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
If what we do um, is an expression of that, then that's who we are. It's very, very simple. We are what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I say, how do you test somebody's sincerity as a new employee? You do that by getting them to do something that is not easy to do
Right.
or is disruptive to their point of view.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a janitor. I'm a top sales guy. What are you, out of your mind? Yeah.
Yes, we
That's
are,
what
and we do it differently here.
yeah, yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. Glad
I
to
was
hear
not
that.
implying we were late or sloppy. You're very Natalie dressed today, and we were both early for the call.
There you go. There you go. So understand the next almost impossible thing you ask him to do that really isn't impossible. It just is in conflict with his own self-worth, his own identification, his own personal paradigm. The next time you ask him to do something that isn't consistent with who he believes he is and how he should be treated will be the other thing that he resists doing. That's how you test it. But you got to get it in the beginning, not at the end.
Right. And would that be a red flag? Would you coach through that, or would you cut ties if you saw that red flag? I love what you said about that resistance.
I would, well, it depends upon how dramatically negative the experience is.
Okay. Makes sense.
Obviously, I'd cut ties with somebody who simply says no.
Right.
Goodbye. It's that simple. Yeah. Don't hope for something you're not seeing right now.
Got it.
Do not.
It. Could you say it one more time, please? I just want to hear it again.
Yeah, don't hope for something you do not see right now. Don't
absolutely love it. Absolutely love it.
Person to become someone who's completely different than the one staring you in the face right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very simple. Now, the other part of the problem is the company itself. The company itself, in many cases, doesn't want to know. It's gone to such expense. It's gone to such amount of time invested to bring this person aboard. The last thing it wants to happen is that the person ends up being cut. They don't want that.
Right. They're in denial, is what you're saying.
Well, they're in denial themselves.
Right. Exactly.
And their resistance is creating the problem of this person resistance.
Right.
Not his.
So if we have a systematized franchise model business and we know how things should do, and we have a young coachable person who's, I had this guy in my office, right? Like, you know, we need you here. Here's the way we do it here. And they learn and they apply. It's so great though to see them develop, right?
Well, absolutely. But you understand also when you say this is how we do it here, then you have to say, and what that means is that there are very specific requirements to learn. It's just becoming a black belt in karate.
Yeah.
There are very specific requirements to go through the process. It's just like becoming a master of salmon fishing or trout fishing. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Trout fishing. You don't just do it. You need to learn how to do it and develop a mastery at it. There is a process for everything we do here.
Right.
So everybody comes in, you understand, with all the stuff they've learned out there. And much of that stuff they've learned out there is in conflict with the stuff we're going to be teaching them in here.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's not true, then there's something basically wrong with the company that's doing it.
Right.
You understand, we aren't hiring people because of what they know. We're hiring people because of what they are determined to learn.
Absolutely love it. And just launching on that, what I see with a lot of managers is they don't know the fundamental, what I'll call fundamental knowledge of the job they're hiring for. So they don't really know the systemization and all the expectations of that role. And so they're flummoxed, right?
Well, that's because they don't think systemically.
Mm-hmm.
In short, in those companies, the system isn't the solution. Better people are.
Right.
And the
We'll get to
problem
that
where
in a
the
little
system isn't the solution, better people are. That's where the conundrum comes through.
Right.
Because how do you define then better people?
Mm-hmm. Well, let me take a stab at that because I was going to ask you that. How about people who can update your mastery to a higher level and do it faster with a higher degree of purpose and alignment? To me, that's a better person.
Oh, absolutely. But mostly people who are there to grow.
Right.
They've already made a commitment. I wish to grow. Let me tell you what I imagine myself becoming 5 years from now, they say, 10 years from now.
Right.
I want to paint a picture for you. Is that possible here? Now, understand, they're not going to say that to you. They're going to hide because they don't want to challenge or threaten the possibility of this new job right at the very beginning. So the manager's got to do that. So the manager's got to have a process to help the new person define the outcome the new person himself wishes to pursue. And to help that person define that will be the very first time they've ever done that on a job.
Right. It isn't that juncture you speak of how exciting is with what we learn or what we know and what we don't know, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you see, when this provocative process is engaged in, something new occurs between employer and employee that never existed before. It's the rarest of companies that actually do this, other than those companies that do something like this to manipulate the people they hire.
Right.
This
And
is
what would
not
you
a
call that?
manipulation.
What would you call that where it exists, and what would you call it in that manipulation phase? Could you give a couple examples? I'm really curious what that magic sweet spot
Well,
should be.
very simply, in most companies that are copying what Apple did, copying, et cetera, and so forth, what a McDonald's does, copying what the most successful companies do, they're not living it authentically. They're not really walking the talk, and they're not talking the walk. They're essentially using tools. That's why I hate that word so much. Mm-hmm. They're using tools to effect a result that they have not been able to get so far. But you can't use tools unless you've mastered the tools you intend to use. And the only way you're going to master the tools you intend to use is to use them authentically. And the only way you can use them authentically is if you truly go on the mat with your sensei, with your martial arts teacher. You truly go on the mat in earnest and begin the practice from the very beginning with, as I've said, a blank piece of paper and beginner's mind. So that blank piece of paper and beginner's mind has to exist in the management system of a company. Mm-hmm. In other words, the school isn't just for them. The school is for each and every one of us. The school is the environment, the culture within which we live and work. And it affects everybody from the CEO down to the most ignominious individual in the corporation. Everybody goes to school.
Love it. Absolutely love it. You cite leaders not looking for employees as much as players who want to play the game. And the important part are people who are serious in playing the game. What is the game of business?
But the game of business is the game of life. Effectively, everybody has to work somewhere. They're either working for themselves on their own or they're working for somebody else, and they're working to make a living.
Mm-hmm.
Effectively, we know that. Everybody knows that. You go to work to make a living, and everybody wants to make a living.
Right.
And the better the living,
a living with purpose, right?
now we're adding an extension to the story, because everybody's got to make a living means whether you're working someplace with a presumed purpose or not. Very critical first thing is I'm making a living.
Mm-hmm.
Now think about it. Our working class in the United States today, our working class American here in the United States today, on average, earns $12.30 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
That's our working class. And our average worker in our working class isn't working a full-time job.
Right.
So understand they're not full-time employees. So I don't have to give them the benefits of a full-time employee. And they're only earning enough to perhaps almost get by, but not really. And that's why there are 44 million Americans on food stamps.
Mm-hmm.
Effectively, the government is providing the difference between what our corporations are paying and what somebody has got to have in order to, in any way, shape, or form, get by, make a living.
Right.
It's
so what's the solution to that? Who owns that? Is it the business owner or the employee? What's the solution? Who owns that?
Well, the employer owns that, and the employee owns that, and the government owns that. Everybody's got to take responsibility for their own role in that.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can't change the employer, and I'm not here to do that, I'm here to change every single individual on the planet with my work. I'm here to awaken the entrepreneur within every ordinary person on the planet. If I can't do that, then they're out of luck.
Mm-hmm.
In short, then they're completely dependent upon what happens outside of them. Then the employer's got to do it. Then the government's got to do it. Then so-and-so's got to do it. But effectively, I have no control over whether so-and-so is going to do it or not. So you're out to lunch.
Right. Is it fair to say we all need to figure out how to add more value, right? As a business owner, yes. I need to create more value, and I need to challenge my team to add more value.
I have to create more value, but I also have to help the people who have joined me create their own value.
Right on.
And that's not to shirk my responsibility for what we do.
Mm-hmm.
It's clearly and simply to take the responsibility for what we've committed ourselves to do, which is become the employer of people.
Love it.
We're employing people to enable us to achieve our corporate objectives. Then it behooves us to assist our people in achieving their personal objectives. And so that bargain has to be made. It's got to be made or it won't be. And when it's not, it creates conflict, such the conflict you see on the street all the time. It becomes political.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we like business. We want to stay out of the politics.
Yeah.
Michael, you cite that the most important thing in the game is how you act. And I assume you're talking about the leader. It is first, last, and always about how you act, you wrote. How you act establishes how you will be regarded by the other players. You seem to be talking about congruency, both for the leader as well as the employee. What advice do you have for both of them on that point?
Well, you see, Rick, what we need to do in this languaging of ours is to come back to basics. And that means when I described earlier that a company must possess a story, and that story must be a story that's told, and that means told continuously. It's a live story, it's a living story, it's a purposeful story, it's a meaningful story. It talks about the impact the company intends to have on the world, that it has the determination to shape. That story has to be alive in the leader.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be alive in the leader if it's ever going to be alive in the people who report to the leader.
Right.
And if it's ever to be alive in the people who report to the people who report to the leader, it's got to be alive within them as well. So you understand, this story has to live at the heart of the company.
Mm-hmm.
And every way and shape or form you and I can think of to bring that story to life is a critical focus of our attention.
Right.
So that means when we talk about the leader, with a cliche, walking his or her talk, and I say talking his or her walk,
Mm-hmm.
effectively, what I'm saying is that's all we need to know. Do you understand? We don't need to become really, really, really super focused on tools. We need to be focused on meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And that means, what do we mean when we say meaning? And you can look at a picture and feel the meaning of it. A mother with her daughter,
Mm-hmm.
a father with his son, a leader with his gang. In short, you can express those stories in many, many ways that touch the people who hear them, because they're true stories. They're not made up stories. You
Right.
follow me?
Yep. And true stories have to come from actions, right?
Absolutely. True stories all lead to behavior,
Mm-hmm.
because behavior is everything. We can feign our belief in our company, and we do. Most people do. Or we can truly believe
Mm-hmm.
in what we do in our company and the role I play in it. Now, how to turn that from some artificial expression of me too to a truly visceral expression of meaning. You know, when we say the words, God bless America, well, those words have become meaningless
Mm-hmm.
to countless people in America.
Right.
And that's because, and hear this, this is the political effect. That's because God has been made meaningless in America. Now,
Couldn't
hear
agree
me.
more.
Take God out of America, and you take America out of America.
Couldn't agree more.
And so when we say that, and we say that in our meeting, for example, with our key people, we say that in a way that's authentically expressing the truth of that. Take God out of America, and you take America out of America. And that's why we're experiencing the divisiveness we're experiencing in our country today. But that's also why we're experiencing the divisiveness we experience in our companies today. Because the authentic meaning, what it authentically means to be a human being under God, has been lost.
Couldn't agree more. So all that authenticity, in your opinion, comes from God.
All that, well, what am I to say? What am I to say, Rick? I'm going to say I'm bringing the conversation to the fore to suggest that this is what the difference between an authentic conversation and an artificial conversation.
Got it.
That when one says God, one's eliciting awe.
Right. And it has meaning.
It's beyond understanding.
Right.
It's beyond understanding. It's beyond manipulation. It's beyond artificial talk.
Right.
I can't even comprehend it. Do you understand?
I do understand. Yeah.
You have to understand. Because how could we not understand that? It's impossible to understand where we came from. When you think of the universe, billions and billions of years, and then you think of human beings only 70,000 years here, where did we come from?
Right.
Now, hear me. You ask that question, but when we ask that question, we're asking a question there is no answer to.
Right. Requires faith.
It requires faith. Or it requires a blank piece of paper in beginner's mind with the passion to ask the most important questions and to live those questions authentically.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we get to talk to our people about.
Right. And you went all the way to the great Almighty, the great I am, right? As
yes.
Yeah.
But of course.
One nation under God. Let's just bring it down to the company, and we'll go back there. In a company, right, we might not invoke the creator, but it sounds like on a miniaturized level, we need to get back to those fundamental truths, right?
Well,
that authentic truth.
Absolutely, clearly necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And effectively, if we don't realize that we're mortal, that we're only here for a few days.
Right.
That in the scan of time, we're here and gone. And if that's true, and of course it's true, then how we spend our time here is truly important. Now, we can spend our time watching TV, we can spend our time being oblivious to the bigger questions about what it means to be here, the gift of life, the challenge of life. And when we begin to do that, we begin to truly come alive.
Right. So I guess the question, what's the question we need to be asking ourselves as business leaders, as employees within those businesses? It sounds like it's begging a question, Michael.
Well, it's begging the question, why are we here and what are we here to do?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I here and what am I here to do? I want to create the best company on the planet.
Right.
Why do I want to do that?
Right.
As an expression to every human being that we come into contact with, that in fact, you can become the best company on the planet. Right. See, we did it.
And then that response has to be authentic, if I hear you correctly.
Yeah. Of course.
100% authentic, no.
But you see, I'm not making this up.
Right.
I'm not saying here's a great strategy, try this. I'm not saying that. Yeah. You can't try this. You can't do what I just said inauthentically and have it come off at all.
Right.
And raise that
Yeah.
issue.
We're just fooling ourselves, right? We're just fooling ourselves.
Fooling yourself. It's absurd.
Agree.
You're a fool.
Yeah. Well, we'll get back to that question at the end if that's okay. How do systems and processes actually, well, let me back up before I ask that. The fastest growing job sector, pardon me, let me say it one more time. The fastest growing job sectors for the so-called knowledge workers. There seems to be a popular conception in the business media to just hire these people for their brains and then get out of their way. This appears contrary to your teachings, and we talked a little bit about that before, about the owner and managers needing to develop their own ideas into the system. I think I know your thoughts on this, but where have they gone wrong and how do we get them right?
Well, first of all, let's assume that your description of the knowledge worker is true, that we hire people for what their brains, get out of their way and let them do their job.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of press on that.
Yeah, and what a horror story.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know how much experience you've had with people, but I'm 82.
I'm 52.
I've had a lot of experience with people over the years, and getting out of their way isn't what I would recommend anybody do.
Right.
So effectively, a company can't get where a company wishes to go by hiring the smartest people on the planet and getting out of their way.
Mm-hmm.
There's no truth to that at all. And effectively, what has to be done is you need to hire the brightest people you wish to hire. And then absolutely be in their way to shape how their intelligence is to be used to produce the outcomes we have designed or defined for ourselves to produce. So you follow, it's not getting out of anybody's way.
Right.
It's first of all, this company of ours is a culture. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Mm-hmm.
It has a reason for being. It has a personality all of its own. It stands in a way in the marketplace and says, I am this.
Right.
And this is why I'm important to you.
Right. And we know how to do it or make it, right?
Of course. And if we don't know how to do it and make it, we're lost.
Yeah. Well, trust me, I agree 1,000% with you. I just read this all the time and I don't agree with it, right? Because somebody knows how to make a great product, a great tire, a great bourbon, a great meal, right? So
yeah,
it's
but
the fundamental knowledge within the business that we're looking to expand with other bright people, not hiring people to tell us how to do it, right?
Get it, Rick. They learn how to do that someplace else.
Right.
And someplace else isn't what we intend to be.
Right.
We intend to become the someplace else that everybody else wants to copy.
Right.
And if that's true, we can't do that by using what he knew someplace else. We've got to begin it here anew. So the process for engaging our smart people is effectively a definitive process. Step one, step two, and we talked about that,
right,
et cetera, and so forth, toward the evolution of our enterprise. And so I talk about the eightfold path that we deliver in Radical You, our entrepreneurial development trade school.
Mm-hmm.
And effectively, we say that those eightfold steps are absolutely essential to turning a company of one into a company of 1,000.
Yep.
And you must take them first, step one, second, step two, and so forth, and so forth, and so forth, and so forth. Meaning process.
Right. Would you agree most companies have it backward, though?
I'm sorry?
Would you agree most companies have it backwards?
Well, most companies don't have it at all.
Okay.
Most companies are living in hope.
Yeah.
Most companies are hoping for tools. Most companies are looking for experts to solve their problems for them, when in fact, solving your problems for you is like fixing a broken business.
Yeah.
And I'm essentially saying it's exactly the wrong outcome and the wrong process for achieving great, glowing results.
Right. Well, good thing they seek out guys like you and me, right?
What can I
So,
tell you?
what's that?
I said, what can I tell you?
Just a few good ones, right? How do systems and processes actually humanize a company?
Well, systems and processes don't humanize a company. The application of systems and processes humanize a company. In short, the systems and processes have to be user-friendly. They have to have a profoundly positive impact for the purpose they're being utilized. And if they do, and when they do, they have a profoundly human impact everywhere they're used, from the user of them to the consumer of them, to the one who's being manifested by them, and so forth and so on. So effectively, systems don't humanize a company. Humans humanize a company.
Mm-hmm.
Systems take that humanization to the highest level possible.
Cool.
Only because if there's something we've got to do, there's a way we've got to do it. And so our total focus is improving upon the way we do what we do. And the only way we know that, in fact, we're improving upon the way we do what we do is by the impact it has. So measuring the results.
Right.
And so we're working on the system all the time to effectively improve upon the system all the time, continuously, forever and on, knowing that our life is here to create. If we're born in the image of God, as it said, and I believe in that statement, that we're born in the image of God. If we're born in the image of God, that means we're born to create. It's obvious.
Yep.
We, human beings, were born to create. To create what? To create a world fit for God. And if we're here to create a world fit for God, then we're continually working on our humanity to improve upon it continuously, never-endingly, constantly. And that, when you think about it, is exactly why we're here.
Yep, exactly.
And so there's a way to do everything. And there's a way to improve upon that way. And any company that ignores what I just said is living a lie and living a disaster, because they're depending upon people as they are to achieve results as they are not.
Oh, love it. And that's a great tie into the next question here. So I find in general, lots of leaders and managers talk a good game about developing people, but talk is cheap and very few are actually willing to truly develop talent. What are your thoughts? What should they be doing?
Well, they should be doing everything we've been talking about.
Yeah.
In short, if continuous improvement is why we're here, continuous improvement is why we're here, is in fact why we're here, to continuously improve the planet, to continuously improve our role here on the planet, to continually improve what we do and how we do it, to make it a world fit for God. If in fact that's true, and I believe that completely with every fiber of my being, then obviously that tells managers what they're here to do. You understand? We're
Yes.
here to continuously improve the way we do what we do, to go beyond where we are, to create a world that could perfectly be aligned with whatever the outcome we've designed our company to produce.
Mm-hmm.
What an extraordinary thing that every leader takes to heart.
Right. No, absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. As we draw this interview to a close, I wanted to ask you anything that you wanted to share with our listeners today that we haven't covered?
I want every single one of you to know that we have just launched the most ambitious enterprise of my career. It's called Radical You. It's what I call a trade school for entrepreneurial development. It's online 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, one extraordinary class every week, 52 weeks a year, again online. When you can enroll in it right now at radicalu.com, you just sign in and you're a student at Radical U. And we take you through the eightfold path. It's a 5-year process to grow a company of one to a company of 1,000. There is nothing like it on the planet. And here's the very best and even most improbable news, that the entire engagement at Radical U, the tuition for Radical U, for spending a year with me at Radical U, is only $479.40. One time. 52 weeks a year, week after week after week after week, to awaken the true entrepreneur within you, to discover your dream, your vision, your purpose, your mission, to go to work on your client fulfillment system, to go to work on your client acquisition system, to create your franchise prototype in McDonald's language, to go to work on your business and transform it into your enterprise, and all of that to take place over 5 years for the distinct purpose of preparing your company to scale for sale, to be acquired in 5 years. What an incredible outcome to produce. We just launched, Rick. We're so excited about it. Every single person you know needs to sign on and join us at Radical U. It's spectacular.
Sounds super exciting. Sounds super exciting. Thanks for sharing that. Let me ask you this. We talk in our business here a lot about A players. What does being an A player, given everything we just talked about, mean to you? And why would that be important as an employee or as an owner of a business?
Well, an A player is somebody who says, teach me, Michael, teach me.
Mm-hmm.
Teach me everything you know. Tell me what I have to do. Tell me how to do it. Tell me how to improve upon myself every single day of my life. Help me grow beyond where I am to become who I can't even imagine I'll be. That's what an A player is to me, Rick.
Oh, I love it. Well, and just to tag on to that, we're launching A Player University, also online.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so maybe we can help each other out, launch those, and make them as big as possible.
You got it.
Yeah, Michael. Besides that, what else is up for you? What do you see?
Well, I have a brand new book coming out, and it's a book that I actually wrote to announce Radical You. It's called Making It on Your Own in America or Wherever You Happen to Live: A Journey Toward Radical Self-Employment.
Wow.
And the good news is, it's a gift.
Awesome. How do listeners find that?
Every person just needs to come to Michael at michaelegerber.com and say, I want your book, Making It on Your Own. Making It on Your Own. Send me your book. And done. It'll be ready this month. We'll get it out to them.
Cool. Well, hey, Michael E. Gerber, thank you again for just your wonderful sharing with us. We'll be breaking down this information and sharing it and getting it out, and just wonderful, wonderful teachings. You've been so gracious with your time and your wisdom. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you, Rick.
Yep. Let's do it again sometime.
Take care.
Bye-bye.